Hi, this is Regina Y. Favors with a quick discussion from the Toxic Encounters book, which is titled Toxic Encounters: Why People Pursue Rebound Relationships, Part 1. And it is part 1 of a 3-part series. So I want to come to you and talk to you about mate retention strategies, which you can find this discussion in chapter 5 of the book. So I'm just going to read and then add a bit of analysis. What were some of the strategies you have used in the past and maybe in the present to prevent your partner from infidelity or defection, which means disinvesting from the relationship? And there are 2 types of strategies, that mate retention strategies, that people often employ when they want to prevent a romantic partner from leaving the relationship. And so that is benefit provisioning and then cost-inflicting. And then, of course, the last question, would you use those same strategies today? So thinking about mate retention, it usually always begins with the initial goal you have for the relationship. And a lot of times relationships may end or terminate abruptly because maybe people did not have an initial goal. You could say the same for those relationships that lasted 15, 20 years, 30 years, and then the 2 partners decided to divorce. And in some cases, people might say, well, they fell out of love with each other, or they lacked true compatibility, or they were just with each other for convenience. But lately I've been hearing this word connection, and that the 2 people did not have a true connection, because if it's love, love should stand the test of time. And that might be a cliche, but it's sort of, love covers a multitude of sins, if I can just inject a biblical reference. But if we're looking at mate retention strategies, going back to this idea that what was the initial goal for the relationship? You have individuals who marry simply because they want to get out of their parents' house. And so they have it in mind that I can go ahead and marry this man. And it's not like they have a vision for the marriage to last, to outlast their lifetime or anything like that. It is maybe in some cases a day-by-day effort, or a month-by-month effort, or a year-by-year effort, right? You have some people who marry for money. And so they're going to do all that they can to retain their status in the relationship. You have some people who come together as a result of an affair. And of course, if you worked all that hard to keep that partner, or in some cases take that partner from someone else, or that partner left another person, you're going to make sure that you do all you can to keep that relationship, to retain that relationship. So it all begins, mate retention strategies are always based upon the initial goal of the relationship. They are also based upon your ability to sustain a relationship. If you jump from relationship to relationship, there is no real guarantee that the next relationship you jump into is going to last. Because if you hit your 2-year mark and you are out of there, then you are creating a pattern for subsequent relationships. That 2-year is your max, and then you have to go. Whether that's a marriage, a live-in situation, common law, anything like that, right? And so that idea behind whether or not you stay is based upon your capacity to sustain relationships. If you come from a toxic, hostile background, family background, where no one stayed together, everyone divorced, everyone argued, everyone struggled financially, sometimes you might have been homeless, had to move in with family or something like that, you will find yourself as an adult walking out those patterns, even if you are not directly saying that's what you are going to do. So oftentimes when you are retaining mates as well, it is based upon the family, what you saw within your family dynamic. You saw your parents sit at the table and cry over bills and work together, and all of you were poor, and you basically only had enough to last for that week, and you had to go down to the food bank or something like that or borrow food. Okay, you will carry out that pattern. Somehow the spirit that's on the inside of you, um, and your personality and your worldview will attract a person who thinks exactly the same way, who has grown up in the same type of family dynamic, maybe even in the same neighborhood. And so then what you both saw in your childhoods, that even though you were poor, the father was still in the house, the parents stayed together, you will try to replicate that unconsciously, right? It isn't until, I don't know, sometimes you may have to have an epiphany. Someone within that dynamic, within your dynamic, has to say, I cannot live like this. I don't want to live like my parents. We need to change. Well, when that happens, um, the mate retention strategy that you've been utilizing all this time is going to be challenged, because if you have one partner who is fine with the way everything is, but you are the person who says, we need to change, we need to move, we need to leave this neighborhood, it's time to do differently and make more money, and the other person doesn't have a problem with the money that you are making and the neighborhood and the way you're living, that's going to clash. You're going to clash, because one of you has decided that education is important, whereas you come from two backgrounds where education was not important. People barely stayed on a job. Or you can come from a background where people actually stayed on a job for 25 plus years, but you and your generation might decide, okay, I want to have a business. Okay, well, if you want to have a business, but your partner still has the same ideology that we need to stay on the job for 25 years, you're going to clash. That mate retention strategy is going to be challenged. When that mate retention strategy is challenged, what do you do? Do you leave your husband? Do you leave your wife because she wants something different or he wants something different? As long as each partner wants to stay together and retain the relationship, it doesn't make any real sense to leave the relationship. Usually people leave relationships when it comes to infidelity, cheating, right? So then what would be some of the strategies you have used in the past and maybe in the present to prevent your partner from infidelity or partner defection, which is basically you stop disinvesting from the relationship? Well, this, once you get to a point where you no longer want to invest in a relationship, which is emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, financially, this is not something that happens within a month. This is not something that happens within even a year. This is something that has been going on for a much longer time and you just never addressed it. And so if your partner began cheating early in the relationship and you took the person back, um, you might have changed up your strategies in how you invested in the relationship, but you were still physically present. But at some point, the emotions, you start withdrawing emotionally to the point that 5 years into the relationship or 10 years into the relationship, you have decided to exit it. And so the disinvesting, of course, is going to be, you don't cook as much as you used to. You don't give much sex as you used to. You don't do the things that you did to get the relationship and to sustain the relationship early on. And so some of the strategies, if you are using strategies from previous relationships that did not work out, I think what that suggests is that there was no true closure from the previous relationship, because you can't necessarily take mate retention strategies from a previous relationship into a new relationship, because that person is different. They are two different people. Even if you get the two guys or two girls from the same neighborhood, same apartment place, everything, they still have different family nurturing, social nurturing, different expectations, different dreams, different ideals about life, different ideals about marriage, relationship. So whatever strategies that you used in your past may not necessarily work with this type of partner. For example, people love to give ultimatums to men, especially women like to give ultimatums to men. Well, men don't respect ultimatums. They don't work for them. Because then if you give a man an ultimatum, it's no different than you putting your foot on his neck. And no man is going to let you just, no man is going to lie there and let you just put your foot on his neck. Even a weak man, which people call simp, I think, even and a simp is essentially a person where the woman is controlling the relationship. And so even a simp is going to get tired of being manhandled by a woman. So that strategy that you might have used of giving an ultimatum in another relationship, and the only reason why you are not in that relationship because you just decided to exit. The person might have given in to your wishes, but you decided for sport to exit the relationship. But you haven't had necessarily a an experience where you gave the ultimatum and the person said, okay, you can go. See, if you had that experience, you will be less likely to give ultimatums in the new relationship. So again, what were some of the strategies you have used in the past and maybe in the present to prevent your partner from infidelity or defection? Infidelity, there's cheating, and then there's a state of cheating, which I call infidelity. And so by the time you get to mate retention strategies to prevent infidelity, I don't know, I think you might have lost the battle, because there's one cheating incident and then the person says, I'm sorry. There's another cheating incident, the person gets some help, and then maybe one more cheating incident and you both are going to counseling. Okay, well, there's an element of learning, there's an element of progressing, and the person no longer cheats anymore. But if you are 15 years in a relationship and your husband is leaving every weekend to go and sleep and live with his mistress, you have lost that game. You've lost the battle. He's winning the game, because then he can come back to the house and you will still have dinner on the table. His clothes will be washed, and you will step back into the role of a wife and give him whatever he needs to satisfy his decision to stay. So as long as you let him stay, he's retained in the relationship. But he's already defected from the relationship once he engaged a mistress, or once you engage a mister. You've already defected from the relationship. That means you both are disinvesting. And I don't know when that begins, when you stop investing into the relationship, but it begins. So then there are two mate retention strategies: benefit provisioning and cost-inflicting. So with these two strategies, then benefit provisioning is essentially gifts, compliments, anything, money, anything that will allow the partner that you use to retain the partner, to retain the mate. Because if you're giving gifts and presents and some kind of honor and value, you still attribute some mate value to that partner. Otherwise, you would begin to cost inflict. But even with cost inflicting, which is really defined as insults, sexual jealousy, revenge porn, maybe physical violence, anything to sort of keep the partner in the relationship, keep the partner from defecting, that in some ways you still see some mate value in that partner when you use cost-inflicting mate retention strategies. Now, you see that person as a lower mate value, because otherwise, why would you hit or try to kill anything that you love? And so the benefit provisioning is always going to be, if you're looking at the context of a partner cheating on their partner, and the woman gets mad and upset, or the man gets mad and upset, he's going to bring flowers, she's going to cook a meal, she's going to give him sex or something like that, right? And that could be some part of benefit provisioning to retain that partner in the relationship. But then there are costs, because even if by definition cost inflicting is basically insults, physical, mental attack, any other type of category where it brings harm, you still struggle with this idea of investment, the concept of investment. I put all this time into this relationship and I got to give it up. Even if he's hurting me, or even if she's hurting me by making a fool of me, making me a cuckold or something like that, I got to give it up. And so then when you are considering benefit provisioning and cost inflicting mate retention strategies, go back to the initial goal for the relationship. People often say the best way to determine compatibility is to write down what you want, ask for what you want. And we usually don't do that. What we usually do is we jump into relationships with sex first and not the conversation. And if you have conversation with someone for a while before you actually meet and hook up and do anything that that requires, some sort of sexual communication, you will find out if you are truly compatible with that person, with their belief system, worldview, ideals, financial management strategies, things like that. Because once you can understand who that person is, you will be able to determine if you can retain that person as a mate in your life. That despite certain aspects and troubles and issues that you might have, the person is still worthy of retaining as a mate. And so you have to determine that for yourself, but it all goes back to that initial goal for the relationship. Would you use those same strategies today? So any strategy that you used in the past, would you use those strategies today? And that is a very interesting question, because if they didn't work in the past, meaning that you are no longer with that partner, why would you bring forward those types of strategies where you are now? And so every relationship deserves its own planning, enduring, long suffering, goal setting, successes, some failures, some get back up again, setbacks, overcoming, every relationship deserves a clean slate. That's why it is very important that you address issues that you might be having individually before you decide that you want to engage a romantic relationship. So these are 2 mate retention strategies based upon what you have done in the past. This is in chapter 5. And take some time to read chapter 5, because it is very helpful concerning mate retention strategy. So, Toxic Encounters, Why People Pursue Rebound Relationships, part 1 of a 3-part series, is available on Amazon. You can visit my website, reginayfavors.com. And then, of course, like, subscribe, and follow. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And just type in Regina Y. Favors. Thank you for listening.